My guest today is the godfather of alternative underground rock and roll, the lead singer of Jane's Addiction, Porno for Pyros, his solo career, and the creator and visionary behind Lollapalooza, and now Kind Future with Eddie, Mr. Perry Farrell, my old friend.
How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great. Great to see you, by the way. So yeah, there's so much to get into, Perry. I mean, you have the new box set, the Glitz and the Glamour, so I want to get into that. You know, this show is really like your life story, and you've led an incredible life. We met probably 20 some odd years ago, I guess. The first show I ever performed in LA was at the Park Plaza Hotel with my band Black Cherry, with Bruce Moreland on bass.
Wow.
Opening up for you guys. I was a kid. I came to LA. I think you had on like lingerie. I didn't know what was going on, but I was like, there's a movement going on in LA that I need to be a part of. It is an incredible movement. So there's been 35 years since then, and what an incredible career you've had. But take me back to the beginning, Perry, because you grew up, I don't know if you know, but I grew up in Woodmere, and you were, I think, born in Queens, and then you grew up in Woodmere too.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so talk to me about your childhood and just growing up and what you were exposed to musically too.
The Beatles were a huge influence on me when I was a little boy, growing up in Queens especially. By the time I got to Woodmere, I'm trying to think the groups. Oh, I remember hearing Led Zeppelin for the very first time, Whole Lot of Love. And I thought, this guy can't sing, it's terrible, you know? But then I just fell in love with Zeppelin later. But I must have been in first or second grade when I heard Zeppelin for the first time in Woodmere. I first began my love of music though, when I lived in Queens as a little boy, because I had an older brother and sister who were super into music. At that time, the British invasion was happening. My brother and my sister are a good 8 and 10 years older than me. So I was not such an accident. I think I was put in place to try to save my mother's marriage, but it wasn't to be. So she was left with taking care of me, and she had a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and now she's got this newborn, and my father's trying to get away from the family and marry somebody else. So that all came crashing down. My mom ended up to commit suicide, but we loved music in the house. Like back in those days, I can remember hearing, good love, give me that good love, good love. What I need is love, right? In my house, dogs barking, my brother fucking screaming at the top of his lungs, my sister, you know, he's got that breakdown.
Yeah, of course.
Good love, you know, then it bops back into it. And I fell in love with music then. My brother was trying to be a singer at that time. He was hanging out with this group, the Left Bank. They sing that song, don't walk away, Renee. I can't sing it because my son's practicing above me and he's playing.
Yeah, I hear something going on there. It's like an echo or something.
He's playing Beatles.
Oh yeah,
he's playing Beatles, Day Tripper.
Amazing.
So it's hard to sing across it, but I'm going to keep doing it because I love listening to my son practice. It's killer.
It's amazing. So at a certain point, you're listening to Bowie, Iggy, I guess, and Lou Reed.
That was in when I moved down to Florida.
Okay.
In my high school, so this is early 70s. I moved to Florida at the age of 13, and yeah, then I was reading Cream magazines, and I had a few freaky friends, you know, that we loved music. We couldn't wait for the next Zeppelin to drop, and we were introduced to Lou Reed, and he was so sick and brilliant, and Iggy, and of course David Bowie.
Yeah. By the way, there's a great story about how you met Bowie, which I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I remember you had some interactions with him later on in life, didn't you?
I would hear these stories of him coming to check us out. I didn't know he was there. But I, you know, when I started to get into music, and everybody, you first emulate your heroes, you know, and Bowie was at the top of that list because I felt that I could closest emulate him because of my frame. And because of my my register, like where I was, I could hit really high notes too. But he liked to croon, and I could do that stuff. But and I also love Jagger, Mick Jagger, again because of his frame and my range. I could hit his notes. So I thought, and plus I just love their lifestyle. I love what they were about, you know.
Yeah, stylistically, incredible.
Stylistically,
Yeah,
they just like androgynous and wild, and it was the life for me, Scott.
yeah. And at a certain point, you decide to move to LA. I think it's like early '80s, right? And you start surfing. So talk to me about that and kind of how you formed the first band, Cycom, because that will then tie into your new box set, which we'll get into.
So by the time I got out to California, it was just right after I graduated high school. I wanted to get my diploma. Took a Greyhound out to California, and I was by myself, but I got deeper into, you know, I was living up in Hemet, California, which is the high desert, and I was a framer, but I was living with this kid who was also on my crew, on my construction crew. And, you know, when you work construction, after work, you get a 12 pack and you guys sit down, the crew sits down and just drinks until they just pass out. And they do it again. They get up the next morning and they frame in the day. When the weather cools off, they sit around and they shoot the shit. And I was living with one of the kids that was also on my crew, and he had this huge stack of Zap comics. San Francisco. See the this poster behind me, Rick
cool,
Griffin.
Yeah.
That was a Hendrix poster, original Hendrix poster, but Rick Griffin was one of the main illustrators in Zap Comics, and I super got into the San Francisco lifestyle.
Was that around the Robert Crumb time period?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I loved, and I was an artist myself, so I loved to draw what they call cross hatching with a rapidograph. It was a small pen that you could exchange the tips and get thicker lines or thinner lines. It was very intricate patterns, but anyway, I got into it because I was an artist in high school. I would draw magazines myself. I had this one magazine I called Surf Rat. And so all my friends would gather around when I had a new episode of Surf Rat. I would draw like Surf Rat going up coast, and he's hit Sebastian Inlet. And man, the surf is going crazy, you know, but now he's got to go take a shit. And so he uses his friend's underwear, and his friend's going, "Where's my underwear?" And Surf Rat wiped his ass with his underwear, and he found out, but he saw his underwear in the bushes and he went crazy on Surf Rat. You know, it's like real stories, because I really did wipe my ass with Jimmy's underpants once.
So at a certain point, you decide that this musical journey is for you. You're in LA.
Well, yeah, I wasn't thinking music in those days. It was all surf.
Yeah.
I was a surfer, and I was lucky enough to hang with the main surf crowd in Florida. And then when I came out to California, it was just purely to catch the wild surf, you know?
Yeah. And at what point did you decide that music was going to be your journey and path?
Well, it was an accident. So what happened was I got a job out here at delivering liquor to liquor stores and nightclubs. On one of the nightclubs, I was waiting for the woman who was the manager of the nightclub to sign off on all the liquor. And so I was at the bar, and there was this television screen that was playing like a modeling show of the nightclub. And when the lady came back, she said, "Are you a model by any chance?" And I lied, and I said, "Well, yeah, I do model." And I said, "I can do it all. I sing and I dance." And she goes, "Well, yeah, we need, you know, would you like to come back and be part of this show?" So I said, "You know, sure, I'll do it." But I can do for you something even better than just modeling. Why don't you let me do some impersonations? I can impersonate, Frank Sinatra, and I was making it up. Frank Sinatra, Bowie, Mick Jagger. So she said, all right, I got the job doing that. And then it was just like I was David Bowie. I dressed up like Ziggy, and then girls would be waiting to talk to me afterwards with their guy, sugar daddy just waiting there, kind of like snubbing their nose at me. But what could they do? Because this woman's like passionately wanting me. And I just thought, man, I'm going to do this. One of the kids I was modeling with's brother was a manager, and he wanted to manage me. So I had nothing to lose, man. I was living hand to mouth. I had a girlfriend, but I lost her when we were both homeless. We lived up in LA, on the outskirts of LA. I was living in Hermosa Beach out of my car with her. And she didn't stay with me for very long. She was like with me for about 2 weeks, and she was just, fuck this, I'm out of here. She went back to Newport Beach and hooked up with one of the guys that used to come to the nightclub. And to be honest with you, you appreciate this. So we were also kind of, I guess escorting would be the right term. I would have to go and entertain women on these ships and stuff. You know the gig. I mean, when you're modeling.
Sure, I knew nothing about this with you, but it's incredible.
You don't know anything about this?
I didn't know about this with you. I didn't know you.
No, not with me.
Yeah, sure.
But she was doing it, I was doing it, but then we would like lose each other. Where'd they go? We go off to different rooms. So she ended up going back with the guy who would throw the yacht parties, and lived with him for about 2 years. Fucked my head up pretty bad because she was blowing them on the ship. She was always fucking my head up. This is one of the first heartbreaks I had in my life.
Yeah.
This chick was too wild to contain. So then I moved up to Hollywood with this manager. He was managing me. He was trying to get me to be an actor. So I studied method acting, Stanislavski method acting with one of the proteges of Lee Strasberg. But it wasn't for me. They would send me out sometimes on toothpaste ads. And I had fucked up teeth back in those days. And I was like, I'm never going to get this job. And I don't like having to act like I'm into toothpaste, So I knew that I had some kind of personality and I was compelling as a singer. I had proven it by impersonating David Bowie 3 times and, Frank Sinatra 3 times. But anyway, so then I started auditioning for groups up here in LA, and it was pretty cool because in those days it was punk rock. So I got to slide in there. They didn't, sometimes I would run into a band I would audition for. They really knew their scales and they knew their, they knew theory. I didn't know shit. I still don't know, to be honest with you. And I decided, I was hanging out with the punkers. I decided, fuck this. I'm cutting my hair. I'm shaving my hair into a mohawk. I'm piercing my fucking nose. I'm scarring myself. I'm tatting myself. I'll never get a job in Hollywood, and I don't give a fuck. So it's just, I was auditioning. And then I was very fortunate because I ran into a crew. They were really smart, just everything I wanted. I didn't want to hang out with dummies. The punk rock people, they might look like they're kind of almost like crude and thick, but the LA underground, they were full of the fashion people, writers, critics.
Back then it was artists. Like the Weirdos, right? And the Mau Mau's was all those bands, right, Barry?
Yeah. The Mau Mau's had this guy. He was the skinniest guy.
Yeah, Rick, I believe his name was. Yeah.
I'd see him on the street walking. And I would just go like, no, he's not going to be here. I won't see him in a year. And then sure enough, 2 years later, there he'd be walking on Hollywood, Boulevard. Oh my God, he's still alive. That's crazy.
I think he's still alive from what I understand, but
that's cool. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
I'd love to see him again.
Rick Wilder, maybe? Does that ring a bell? I think that was his
Rick.
name.
I just knew Rick Mau.
Yeah. So at a certain point, you do Cycom, and I think you answered an ad in the Recycler, right?
No, it wasn't the Recycler. Yeah, it might have been the Recycler. There was 3 trades, 3 rags. One was the Recycler. It was free. The LA Weekly came out on Thursdays. It was free. Then you had to buy the Music Connection. And plus the Music Connection connected you with cats that were kind of like
metal guys.
Like really trying to get their act together. We're going to do this. We're going to play guitars. We're going to be a big band,
Yeah.
The other cats were like into, Joy Division. Always start with it. If they said they're in the Joy Division was heavy. And, I really looked up to them. I was introduced to the underground incredible music through Rick and Mariska, who were in my first band, Cycom. And it was right up my alley. The underground, it was for people like me. I was a messed up, but very nice person. But I was messed up from my, from my early days. My family was not conducive to raising a normal, human being. But I think I would have ended up, even if they were. My mother was an artist. My father was an artist. My brother was an artist. My sister wasn't an artist, but she was such a loving person that she ended up to be a caregiver for severely retarded people that can't take care of themselves. Boy, she's a saint, my sister.
Yeah, sounds like a beautiful person.
Yeah, she is.
So at
she's
a certain point,
she's really special.
It sounds incredible. So when you're looking back on this time period now, Farrell, and you're revisiting this music now with Cycom because it's part of this box set that you just put out, what are your thoughts on the music now that you've had like years to reflect on it?
Of Cycom's music?
Yeah.
Well, it's very raw, and I like the fact that there's a record of it. It's kind of like, we'll talk about our pal Bowie. He had that first record where he sang Laughing Gnome, silly songs. Ha, 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 hey, 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 I'm the Laughing Gnome and you can't catch me. It's silly. But you're just so psyched to listen to. It's like, wow. And he was like almost a little kid. He wrote these songs out of little kid to whatever that is next after puberty. And it's adorable. My stuff wasn't adorable. My stuff was, I was already writing about, fixing and death, things like that. So it was very goth, but I'm glad I got away from it, because I would say to myself, it seems like you're going in a good direction here, I would say to myself. And I'd say, do you want to be like Robert Smith and have to sing dreary all your life? Because there's a good chance you're not going to be that dreary pretty soon. Because I was just feeling like, man, I'm going to bust out of this bummer and downer. And I'm going to get, what could I do coming from that would be genuine? Yeah. So it was Jane's Addiction, still talking about death, still talking about fixing, but now there's love, and now there's excitement, now there's pageantry, and there's reason to celebrate,
Yeah, so you meet Eric Avery and Dave and Stephen Perkins, and initially, actually, I think you went through like 4 guitar players and a couple of drummers before you decided on Dave and Stephen, right? So talk to me about how you guys got together. And obviously we want to touch base on all your projects, but the story of Jane's Addiction is so interesting. And again, my first introduction to you guys was at the Park Plaza, that gig we did together, and I was
Yeah.
blown away. And who would know that you would set the stage, Perry, for countless and countless bands to come and actually start a sort of a genre of music.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Pretty incredible.
Jane introduced me to Eric. So I was looking for a roommate. We had had the great curator Stuart Sweezy, who started Desolation Center, along with his brother. I worked for those guys. I worked for those guys at something called a stat house. Those guys also did Desolation Center, which was, they took people out to the desert or downtown. And when I mean they took people meaning the LA underground back then. It was the early 80s. And we performed with groups like the Minutemen, and Meat Puppets came in from Arizona. Sonic Youth came in from New York, and Eisters into Neubauten came in from Berlin. And we went out into the desert, and we would have these parties, or we'd go on a big boat that Stuart would put together in San Pedro and cruise in the harbor, and our groups would just play on the boat.
Amazing.
Bunch of punk rockers cruising around that harbor. It was one, some of the most memorable moments of my life were back then. And I really studied people's joy and people's, what made them happy, what made them tick, and what made them go.
And this was a time around Del Gloria, White Trash A Go-Go, right? All it was sort
No,
of
this is before that.
Okay.
Before that, in Cycom. So Stuart was my roommate, and I worked with his brother, but Stuart moved out. So I had a hole there. In moves Jane. Jane told me, I'm about to bust out of Cycom, and Jane says, I know a guy I just want to do something else, and I'm willing to start from scratch. Like, Eric and I originally just started going out as a two-piece. He would play bass grooves, and I would do my vocal loops and sing, and I would ad-lib the whole set.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I work on songs, and whatever songs I would be working on, I would had scratch lyrics. He'd start to groove out, and of course by then I memorized it, and I would just keep going. Like, there's this other song, Hoka Hey, I'm going to work. Or it would be, it could be a kettle whistle. What makes a kettle whistle? Just working off of his groove. Then I'd put a hold on my delay, and then I'd start to manipulate the delay, the notes of the delay and the speed. And that's how I started dubbing and creating the Jane sound. Really started from a very small seed and grew into an oak, if you will, or a redwood.
Amazing. Yeah, because there was actually two scenes, right, Perry? There was like sort of the hard rock metal scene. So you had all these bands. I mean, you had bands that were sort of in the middle, like Junkyard and bands like that. But then you had your scene, which was obviously you guys were running the show, and it was the Scream, it was White Trash. And then on the other side, you had all these like rock bands. So you were kind of paving the way, like I said, to a new genre of music that really didn't exist. So talk to me about that time period. It was such an incredible time
because
period.
Rock, that type of rock has got a rock root. For me, that's not going to grow anymore. That looks like that's it, because it was corporatized, and they had cats in control that were trying to create formulas for making money more than there were people that loved art and music, and culture.
Definitely.
They were not culturalists. They were not great curators.
Definitely not.
And working in that field, that, I always say, or I'm saying these days, the music industry's got all these pods, got all these, tribes within it. There's some tribes that they're after the Grammy. Some of them are after Hall of Fame. Some of them dig dance music.
Yeah.
Some of them dig, punk rock and underground and avant-garde. And, we're all going through time and space together, but it's very, those cats that are Grammy and Hall of Fame, they're not, they're very, they might be my cousin or something like that, but they're definitely not my tribe.
Definitely.
And then that type of music was not something I just was interested in. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
I was inspired by people that were authentic, genuine, and they had their own personality. And it was amazing. And I learned from those type of artists. And those type of artists, if I learn anything from them, it's that what I like about them is that they're original and they're not trying to jump on some train that, or some tree that is got rock root. I couldn't help myself. I just like the journey of more avant-garde, experimental, the way that, again, my friend David Bowie,
Yep.
I loved his career and I loved his life. The way he went, his last record was unbelievable.
Incredible.
Black Star. And what is it? It's not really rock, or at least the song that I love is not rock. It's orchestra. It's, what I love right now, Scott, I'm really into the idea of orchestra but a new orchestra in, the 2020s.
Yeah.
Because you can have everything that they had in the 1940s, the Count Basies, the Duke Ellingtons, who else was there? Cab Callaways. You can have everything that they had, plus electric guitar, bass, and electric drums, and synth, and surround sound. The choir they had, they had incredible music. I loved their composition, and I loved the variety that they had at their disposal.
I was gonna say, when you look at your body of work, then Perry, you Porno for Pyros, Satellite Party, your solo stuff, Kind Heaven Now. It's an incredible body of work besides Jane's, right? And so you recently put out this box set, which covers like 35 years, right? This retrospective. And let's talk about it for a moment. Like, what sticks out in your head the most when you think about that time period? Is it the porno, side? Is it Satellite Party? Is it, is it the Jane stuff? Is it Kind Heaven?
I think there was a great change in me by the time Song Yet to Be Sung came out. I was flying solo and I felt like a bird. I had all these amazing songs and sounds on the record. And it was the year of Jubilee. It was around 2000, 2001. And at that time, there was an incredible cause, Drop the Debt. I worked on with Bono and Tom York, and the Rabbis of Israel. It was about declaring Jubilee and foregoing all debt and freeing slaves. And I went to Sudan under the radar, and I freed thousands of people from a life of slavery.
Amazing. Wow. Incredible.
Yeah. So I had that all in my heart, and it came out on music. I wanted to make a beautiful record. So it was my first dive into electronic music and all the rock instrumentation that we had loved and grown up with and utilized at first.
Yeah.
So I wrote, along with Brendan Hawkins and Chris Sharma, I wrote every note digitally, and then we layered it on. We had real guitar, real drum, real bass, but it was layered onto digital programming that I had done over the course of 3 years with a team of 3 guys. So it's an incredible album.
Yeah, and you got Tony Visconti to produce it, right? Talk
No,
about a little bit how that came about.
Tony Visconti did the last album,
Yeah,
which is Kind Heaven.
right, exactly.
So Tony and I and the Kind Heaven Orchestra, that included people like Elliot Easton, Mike Garson played piano with Bowie, and Elliot was the guitarist for the Cars, and Pete DiStefano from Porno,
Yep.
Etty, who's been singing with me for last 12 years,
Yeah.
and Tony Visconti producing it. And again, learning from Song It to Be Sung, now I wanted to just continue to develop this, because now our music can go anywhere.
Definitely.
I could go mariachi if I wanted to. I could go punk, like Daft Punk if I wanted to. I could go political folk if I wanted to. I
Yeah.
could go anywhere now. I'm not afraid to switch it up and just be delighted by the creation.
Yeah. Well, you've always been a visionary, 100%. And so
Thank
let's
you.
talk about this box set, because there's songs in there. You did a track with Jim Morrison, which is incredible.
Yeah.
You did new music with Starcrawler.
Not exactly.
Well,
Not
so I mean, you
exactly
unearthed the
with
track.
him, but
Right.
I utilized Jim Morrison's song that no one has heard in the world.
Yeah.
And
So talk about how that came about.
I got it from some people that I've never met, sent it to me from Israel, that told me that Jim wanted me to have these tracks that he had recorded, and they sent them to me, and it is in fact Jim Morrison. And I have recorded now and produced 2 tracks. I think they sent maybe 8 or 9. So
And these are just tracks that were laying around that like you did vocals on
I
with no music?
I don't know how they got their hands on them. They claimed that Jim Morrison, they were in contact with him and he wanted me to have them.
Incredible. Well, I mean, the music is incredible, and it's such an incredible story. And so the rest of the box set, let's talk about that for a moment, right? Because it's Cycom, it's Satellite Party, Kind Heaven, there's a photo book, and the albums are like holograms, which is pretty incredible. When you take them out, they have these holograms
so we've
on
got
them.
vinyl.
Yeah.
I'm into right now with my boys, especially, they're asking me to do this, is like record shopping.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic's over, it's really fun to have old records and really great new records around. You know, it really is.
Definitely.
It makes your household very special. It's like bringing in, quartzes, giant stones and rocks.
Yeah.
It's almost like that, but sonic.
Yeah. Yeah. What are kids into musically? The Beatles, I understand, right?
Yeah, he was doing Beatles. He loves Joy Division. It is nutty because you never know what your kid's gonna like. And when they're very, very young, they didn't know what they know now, obviously. Now one's 19 and one is 17. Now they're into Zappa. And they're into the Beatles, sure, but they're into some, I go, whoa. My son bought me a Velvet Underground Loaded album for my birthday.
Amazing.
Vinyl. 17-year-old.
Incredible.
Killer. We share the fondness for this one song. Oh, ain't got nothing to lose, ain't got nothing at all. Oh, sweet nothing. Ain't got nothing at all. You know that song?
Yeah, amazing.
Sweet Nothing, I think it's called, by Velvet Underground. So he's such a good kid that he remembered that we love that song, got me that on vinyl for my birthday.
Incredible. By the way, Amoeba Music just opened up again because they were closed for like the last year. So it opened up like 3 days ago. So I spent a lot of time there. But another thing I wanted to talk about, Parrot, there's new tracks with Starcrawler on the box set. And talk about how that came about too.
So you know that Ian Jenkinson is my manager.
Yeah.
I've got, Rob McDermott as well. And those guys are kind of solid in there. Then there's Ian Benchley out of the UK. But this team is fierce. And Ian had a lot to do with the whole British house music. He started in Manchester and then moved house music and dance music out all the way to Goa. This guy was instrumental in the festivals.
Wow.
Tribal Gathering. That's him.
Amazing.
So he's like so into the underground and the quality music in this world. So he brought Starcrawler to me because we're looking to get remixes out.
Yeah.
Through people like Sasha, but also people like Sammy from Palestine, Guy Gerber in Israel.
Yeah.
And so we're working with super tasty artists. There's a whole bunch of them. There's Avalanches in Australia.
Amazing.
These guys, these young people come out of Venice. This girl Arrow is just a star. But I think they're awesome. So Ian introduced me to them, and we just said, let's do a show together. And I say, let's do a track together too that we can all do at the show.
Incredible. It's great stuff. And so this is really like a 35-year retrospective. So it's incredible. It just came out, right?
It just came out, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a crazy time to drop it right at the pandemic, but it's at the end of the pandemic. So this is going to be good music coming out of the pandemic, because that's what I wanted. That's what I built it for.
Definitely.
Come out, let's mend, heal, and then let's fucking listen to good music.
100%. And how are you feeling for 2022 about the festival world? Obviously, Lollapalooza is your creation. I know you did a virtual Lollapalooza not long ago. So how are you feeling for festivals coming back? I know Bonnaroo was just announced not long ago. And so that, for me, it makes me optimistic because there's a lineup. It's happening. I think it's in September, October. So I'm feeling fairly good that by next year, things should be hopefully back to normal. Any thoughts on Lollapalooza for 2022?
Okay. Well, here's my thoughts. I'm a little bummed in my heart that human beings don't understand that they need to get vaccinated and put a mask on and social distance.
Yeah.
So that we can all get back to business.
100%.
Like, yeah, you can exercise your right as an American. That argument's bullshit, honestly.
Agreed.
We all want to get back together again, and you're fucking it up and making it not impossible, but you're making it more difficult.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing. If you want to really be a bro, go get a fucking vaccination. I'm kind of cautiously behind the White House.
Okay.
That's the way to play it.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
And
listen,
I'm going to say again, they're doing a great job.
They are. And I got vaccinated. I'm sure you did. So we're part of the solution here, hopefully.
I am.
So listen, I'm so excited about your box set, Per. It's so great to see you in person, by
Thank
the way.
you.
I'm looking forward to actually connecting with you. I mean, we're old friends for 20 plus years here. So in person would be great. You and Etty, I love you both. It's incredible. Go pick up the Glitz and the Glamour. Make sure you follow Per on every form of social media. The box set's incredible. 9 vinyl albums. Everything from Cycom, Satellite Party, Kind Heaven, a photo book, and the albums are also holograms, which is incredible. So, and any other new music we should know about? Any?
Yeah, well, last thing I would mention in the box set is I have a surround sound 7.2 mix of the Kind Heaven Orchestra.
Amazing.
Which means if you have a home studio that watches movies and is in surround sound, put that in. It's a Blu-ray, and you'll hear Kind Heaven Orchestra in the round.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll see the Kind Heaven Orchestra in person coming up soon. I love you, my brother. Thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to see you. And and a lot of love to Etty, and I'll see you guys real soon. Appreciate it.
You take care.